Hi everybody, it's Karina Velasco and welcome to Coffee, Tea or Sex. And I'm a little nervous today. I think I'm very nervous because I have a very special guest. You've been here before, dear Arden Leigh.
I have, and I am.
And you are back because you promised that we were gonna play.
I did, and I always keep my word.
I feel like a virgin. Touch for the first.
You mean you're not?
Well, in bondage, I'm not, which is the topic today. So thank you for being here. Amazing educator and also author of the new rules of attraction. Arden, so let's talk about bondage. Let it go, let it flow. So what's the whole deal with bondage? Why it's getting so popular? Why people like me that never crossed my mind want to learn about it, explore with? Like, what is it about it?
Yeah. One of the reasons that bondage is so great is that by limiting your mobility, you free up parts of your mind because you're not thinking about, well, what should I be doing next? You know, like how should I be touching my lover? How should I be caressing them, or how should I be moving? You know, am I being active enough in this? You know, am I doing my fair share? And when you're tied up by your partner, you literally have no choice but to surrender. You know, I mean, of course, everyone always has a choice. You know, you can always opt out, but if that's the scene that you're doing, you just surrender and you can just be. And there's this quietude in that. There's this peace in it that's really lovely.
That sounds beautiful because usually when we are with our lovers, we want to caress them or we want to turn them on and like bring all the strategies of how to touch them and where to touch them. Mm-hmm. And that goes away.
Yeah.
So it's about losing control as well.
Exactly. It's about just coming back to your own body and being in that stillness and knowing that you are enough to please someone without always actively having to be doing.
So bondage has like this old background story and culture. I've read some books about like the bondage in Japan, which is also an art form. I see the pictures and they're beautiful. Can you tell us a little bit about the story?
Sure, yeah. It actually started as part of a military technique in the Edo period in Japan because Japan is not a country that has a lot of natural metal resources. So in binding prisoners, you know, in Europe, you know, there was chainmail and armor and shackles, you know, and the man in the iron mask. But in Japan, they found that it was much easier to use rope because that was just the things that are native to their country to weave something out of fiber in order to transport prisoners. And then over time, that also got into the theater. You know, they would have the damsel in distress who's, you know, tied up and her kimono has just slipped and shown a bit of leg, oh no. And then you had artists who, you know, did renditions of that and like the art that you were just referencing, you know, with all the really beautiful rope harnesses involved. And then that ended up coming over to the West through John Willie, the photographer who was famous for shooting Betty Page, and so on and so forth, and here we are today.
And how did it ended up like being that a tool of surrendering also in sexuality, and not just as prisoners or art? How did that translate? How that had happened?
Yeah, well, I think there is naturally any time that there is vulnerability, you know, there is something about that feels inherently sexual, you know, because we're humans with these kind of carnal, animalistic desires. So of course, seeing someone who is disenfranchised, you know, who is able to be taken advantage of, someone who literally can't move, our animal thoughts, our baser desires are going to look at that and say, oh, there's, you know, something I could take from this person or what have you. So when you take that base desire and you put it in the context of a healthy and consensual relationship, it can be very hot.
So talking about bondage, how can we start to open our minds to explore this and feeling safe?
Yeah. I think one of the great things about bondage in particular is that it's not as extreme as a lot of other kink activities because typically it doesn't involve a great deal of pain, or it doesn't have to. It's just about limiting your mobility. So it's one of those things that is really great to start out with. If you're interested in exploring a kinky relationship with your partner, restricting their mobility, or them doing it to you is something that really everyone can try. And that's why we see so many fuzzy handcuffs, at the novelty sex shops, because it's just, all right, fuzzy handcuffs and tied to the headboard and whatever. It's really incredibly simple. And what we're going to be doing today is a little bit more artistic. We're going to be using some rope because that's what I like to use. But it's really easy to start that once you start communicating with your partner.
And you can use scarves as well, or ties.
I would be a little careful about doing anything super heavy with that, because if you're using silk, it's incredibly frictive and your knots can get stuck. So don't use an expensive silk scarf in case the knot gets stuck and you have to, cut yourself out of it. But for regular, just kind of tying hands to the headboard, absolutely.
But ropes are the safer bet, and also it feels more sensual in your skin, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a matter of preference too, but I like the traditional feel of ropes, and I like the sort of professional feel of ropes. It's like people can use silk ties and scarves to be like, oh, well, I just wear this scarf. I don't really, but I'm like, no, I'm committing to it. I have rope, and I have rope for a reason.
Exactly, to commit to it.
Yeah.
To explore, because it takes a while to learn this. I have a book.
Yeah.
And sometimes I practice with my chair.
Oh,
because
cool.
I have no one to practice this type of kink with yet.
Oh.
So I practice with my chair.
Put a call out there.
Yeah. But also it's interesting for me because sometimes in life, I feel I'm the one who's working a lot, or, I'm using my hands to get things, writing, a lot of things. So it would be also refreshing just to say, I don't have to do anything. I think that's a beautiful feeling, and you can have this feeling in this kind of exploration, I suppose.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely a gift that you can give to your partner, is taking away their that feeling that they have to do anything at all, to do, that they can just show up and just be and relax and be pleasing even when they can't do anything.
Why is fear around that? Because, I've talked with a couple of friends and we talk about bondage, and they're like, oh, I'm not into that. Why does fear come up? Sure.
I think bondage as a word has gotten conflated with a lot of other aspects of kink, such as sadomasochism. And in fact, to the point where people will assume that bondage also involves pain. And it really doesn't have to. It can if that's your thing, but it doesn't have to be that extreme. It can really just be about being tied up and being restricted. And that part, I think, is so easy. So I think the fear is just coming from a lack of knowledge about what it has to be, or how it's going to show up. And admittedly, for people, mixing pain into sex can be very daunting. It can be very scary because sex is already something that's very vulnerable. And if you're adding physical pain into that, or at least extreme sensation, then yeah, it can be incredibly scary, and there can be a lot of fear around that. And that's fine. It's not for everyone. Not everyone has to like that kind of sensation. But it's also fun to keep an open mind, and there are all kinds of different levels that you can play at. And if you just want to try something light and that's as far as you want to go, there's no shame in that either.
You can have your coffee right now, and we can explore that. You don't have to even take it to the bedroom, which is amazing, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's you can have your decaf, or you can have your double espresso, or anything in between.
and that's what I love. You said a word that it's fascinating to me, which is exploring sensation. So this is a new way to explore different sensations we don't have access to in our everyday life.
Yeah.
So for me, it's open my mind because I want to explore new sensations.
Yeah, and I love the idea of reframing pain as sensation, because pain obviously has a negative connotation with it. But when you're talking about physical sensation, the difference between a caress and a slap is there's a physical sensational difference to it. But what we conflate that with is we conflate it with that it has to mean something, you know, that a caress means I love you and a slap means disdain, it means hatred or what have you. But when you take away that meaning and that intention, it's like a slap with the intention of connecting and healing and exploring that trust and vulnerability together is way better than a caress with the intent to manipulate, you know?
Yeah, that's fascinating about sensation, but I think it's important also to talk about your desires, because one time I was with this guy and suddenly he slapped me in the middle of lovemaking and I was like, what? And I just felt so bad and so humiliated because I didn't understand.
Of course.
So talking about that, it's important before you play.
Yeah, and getting consent, of course, too, you know? Anything that you're going to do with someone, it's always, and especially something that's so sudden and out of the blue as a slap in the face. I mean, you could have trauma around that. You know, you could even understand that someone wants to do that with you and it doesn't mean that he's upset with you or that it's coming from a place of anger or whatever, but you could still say, no, I don't need that in my life, you know? So that was, on his part, he really should have talked to you about that before he did it.
So boundaries, conversation about desires and boundaries are important before getting into play in any type of kink.
I think so, yeah. I mean, I think actually one of the great things about kink is that it kind of forces you to talk about the things that you want to do with one another, to negotiate that and to communicate around it in a way that I wish people who were not kinky also did. You know, I wish people who were who just identify as, you know, vanilla, for lack of a better word. I wish that they talked about sex in as intentional a manner as most kinky people I know do.
Let's talk about sex, baby.
Yes.
Do you remember that song?
Of course. How could I forget?
Super important. So we talked already about, in my case, like surrendering and how beautiful that feels. But how does it feel to be the one who's doing the action of bondage?
It's so wonderful because you're creating this experience for someone and you're relieving them of the responsibility of doing anything, which is such a gift. You're giving someone the gift of their surrender, you know? And to create that experience and also have control is intensely gratifying, because one of the things that I like to do, because, you know, I'm pretty switchy, I can play on both sides. And if I'm tying someone up, I love to have them tied and then make them wait to get the things that they want, you know, and you watch them just ache and squirm, and seeing someone in such a state of desire for you when they're in their arousal, but, you know, they're on your clock, they're on your time, and you get to decide when they're gratified, you know, when they get touched or caressed or when they get the things that they want is, I mean, that's an incredibly powerful trip.
I must be feeling beautiful, like just for someone to desire you so much.
Oh, it's so wonderful.
I'm ready to experience that.
It's so great. And so many men, too, who are maybe not used to taking on that role. What I like about bondage in particular is that since there's not that extreme sensation, you know, or pain or humiliation or things like that, you don't have to incorporate those things. I think bondage, especially rope, is a great way. It's been a great way for me to introduce men in my life to kink that they might not have been exposed to otherwise. And when you have them there and they're, you know, and they're tied up and hard and throbbing and ready for you, and you're just like, I'm gonna go in the kitchen and get a glass of wine first, and just, you know, I'm just gonna let you stew there for a little bit. You know, it's incredible. It's very sexy. It's quite a turn on.
Oh my God. Well, I think probably you that are watching this want to try it out. So we're going to do like a little demo.
Yes.
Let's play.
I'm so excited.
So you have your ropes somewhere here?
I do. I brought lots of rope in today.
Yeah, actually the first time I had a bondage class with Arden, she arrived with all this home and more. And I was like, what's going to happen? So I'm always excited.
Yeah, so we'll just talk a little bit about safety first. You notice I have my safety shears here. These are EMT shears, and you can see that there's this nice little nub right on the tip so that if you do have to cut someone out in an emergency, you could be the most amazing rope top in the whole world, but if your building catches on fire, you're going to need someone to, you're going to need to get that person out of rope very quickly. So these are great because you can slip them under the ropes without cutting the skin, and it's, absolutely necessary to have these around on hand. I've never had to use them, but I always have them with me. So.
Good.
If we catch fire today, you're going to be in good hands.
Thank you. So we're going to start with a simple, hands, right?
Yeah. So basically, when I used to teach rope bondage, I taught it at the House of Professional Domination, where I was employed as a pro dom back in New York, and I used to teach the very basic bondage class. And what I like to teach are 3 basic ties: 1 column, 2 column, and chest harness. So a column is basically any part of your body that rope can go around. So your most obvious columns are your wrists, right?
And your ankles.
Yeah, your wrists, your ankles, but it can also be upper arms, it can also be thighs. You want to be careful here because there's a lot of nerves under there and a lot of radial nerve. It's like the most common place for nerve damage to happen. But, you do it loosely, you do it carefully, and it's fine. So even this can be a column, anything you can wrap rope around can be a column. So when I say 1 column tie, what that means is I'm wrapping rope around 1 column, and then I can use the ends of my rope to tie that off. So I'll show you what we mean. So
Wait, which side, the right?
I think this will work, right? This is
Yeah.
good. So I've got my rope right here. And I keep it coiled so that the midpoint is right here for me. So I just slip this out right here. Voila. And I'm already at the midpoint of my rope. And the reason that I like being at the midpoint of my rope, and this is just a traditional Japanese bondage technique. This is how you'll learn it if you study any Shibari class. But Shibari is the word for rope bondage in Japanese. But the reason for that is that as I'm wrapping the rope around, having it folded in half means I get twice as much rope with the same amount of wraps, basically. So I'm going to start at my midpoint, and I'm going to wrap maybe 3 or 4 times around your wrist, like so.
It feels so nice when you pass it.
It is nice,
yeah,
right?
Just the movement and the texture.
Little scooch right there. And I'm going to put the knot right on the outside here, and I'm going to avoid your wrist bones. I don't want to tie right on the wrist because there's some bones right there. It's not that it's that dangerous, but it's not going to be comfortable, and it's going to be easier for
nice,
your.
Actually.
Yeah, it's
a little more up.
Yeah, exactly. It allows for your circulation to work better. So I'm going to get to this point where it looks like I have like an N or a Z. Let's see if I can show that to the camera. So I've got one rope going this way and the other end going this way, and then I'm going to cross them. And I'm crossing them so that they lock against one another like that. So if you're doing it and you go like this, that is not the right way. So you want to come back and be about there. And then when I do that, I'm going to take my end that has that midpoint at the end, and I'm going to slide it under all of these wraps, like they're little bracelets, like so.
Oh.
And then I just tie off like I'm tying my shoelaces. So I just, like so.
Wow.
And if you have enough left, you can do one more, like that.
Oh, it feels so interesting.
It's nice, right?
Yeah.
And then what happens from here is, let's say you have a headboard, and you can tie this off, to any secure point, that's going to be able to withstand however much you're going to pull on it. And if you want to lock it down so that, someone can't maybe undo this knot and wiggle out of it, is you just pass your free ends through that loop right there. And then they're not going to be able to undo that knot.
And then you can take me wherever you want.
Exactly. So this is fun. Obviously, there's infinite potential here.
Yeah, because last time you teach me also how to wrap it around and create designs with the rope that look beautiful. So the artistic part it's also part of the waiting, the desire, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, when is she gonna be done? Like, it doesn't have to be like really quickly. It takes skill and to slow it down as well.
It's great foreplay. It's so great. Really makes you focus on the body and on, the less obviously sexual parts of the body. So when you tie a one column tie like that, the most obvious thing, of course, is, 2 hands back like that, maybe ankles, spread eagle, but that's any way you want to tie one part of the body and tie it off to something else, one column is your best bet.
Perfect. And then to put the ropes back together properly so they don't tangle.
Yeah, I think it's very professional to just store your rope in a nice way like that. Shows dedication and care.
Okay, I'm ready for the next one.
Yes.
And actually, I wore like an outfit proper for the show today.
I've been noticing that, and I have to say it is a little distracting.
It's a little kinky, right?
I love it. You look fabulous.
Thank you.
So the next tie we're going to do is the 2 column tie. And this basically means taking 2 columns on the body and tying them to one another. So again, our most obvious one is going to be our wrists, but you can also do this with ankles. You can tie ankles together. You can tie, say, like your wrist to your thigh. Yeah, exactly. You could do these 2 columns right here.
Like this?
Like
this?
Yeah, you want to line them up. You want your columns to be next to each other, like parallel,
Ooh.
But there's so much potential for that. You can even tie here to here, you could tie, your thighs. You can tie even your calf to your thigh. Like if you bend your leg at the knee, and then you have your calf and your thigh. You can, any 2 columns basically you can tie together.
Okay, I'm getting hot now.
Well, I guess we better tie you up then.
Yes, please.
So I'm going to start off in the same way that I did before when I was wrapping the 1 column tie. Only this time, I'm going to be wrapping
like this.
Yeah, usually
like
this is about good.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's important here. I always have wrists facing together, like so, because this is the inner part of your wrist that's a lot more sensitive.
Okay.
If you're going to be pulling on it, I'm going to want the outside of your wrist to be the part that's struggling,
okay.
not the tender inside. So this is perfect. I'm going to start, and this time I'm going to wrap around both columns the same way that I wrapped around 1 column before. And I'm going to leave, maybe about, let's see. Let's scooch this around and wrap one more time. There we go. And that should be enough. So I'm at the same place here where I have my 2 ends of my ropes going in opposite directions.
Yeah.
And then I cross them over so that they lock against one another, and I'm going to take my shorter end, the one with my midpoint, and wrap it through both columns, all the way around, up through the hands, like so. And same thing, I'm just going to tie off with that very simple tying your shoes kind of knot.
So, it's natural that it brings emotion up.
Oh,
like right now
sure.
I had like a couple of images, emotion.
Oh, tell me about that.
I don't know, like I just remember, like when you feel with your hands tied, like you can't do anything about it. That sort of came up, and then like nervousness, but I felt like I wanted to cry.
Yeah, a lot of stuff can get released.
This is therapeutical.
Absolutely.
In a way.
Yeah, it can be. It can be for sure.
Okay.
How you doing?
I'm good.
You feel good?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just thought I was gonna get like horny, but no, I just want to cry now.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That kind of trust that comes up when people engage in kink can be really very emotional.
That's amazing.
Yeah, because it brings up vulnerabilities, and it's part of what is exciting about it. And I feel for me, being emotionally vulnerable is also, when I have a partner who's important to me, emotional vulnerability can also be a turn on because you're really being seen, You're being seen for who you are and all you're showing up with.
Okay.
Deep breath, right?
Yeah.
So here we go. We have basically the same kind of things we had before on the 1 column. Again, if I want to lock this down, I can pass it through that midpoint.
Wow.
Like so.
Okay.
And I can tie this above your head. I can even bring this. Down here.
This is feeling good.
Right?
It's like, can you help me do yoga, please?
Yeah. Yep. It's very cool.
This is nice.
So that was our 2-column.
Oh, wow. I had no idea like so many things came up while doing this, that we have that connotation that it's purely sexual.
Yeah, well, sex is so pervasive, I feel. You know, there's so much connotation in sex, and we're never just having sex. We're never just rubbing our body parts together. We're always bringing our full history and our wounds, our deep relational wounds, even from early childhood. You know, our need for being seen, our need for attention, our need for care and nurturing and connection, and you know, we're wired for those things. So yeah, we bring a lot into that equation.
Whew, okay, I'm ready for the third one.
Excellent, cool. So I'm gonna get a slightly longer rope for this one.
So I'm gonna stand and I'm gonna put my best. There he goes.
Excellent.
Okay, so what are we doing? I think this is my favorite one.
Yes. So this is a chest harness.
Yeah.
In Japanese, the name for this is Shinju, which means pearls. And
Can you Shinju me?
I will. I intend to Shinju you. And I'm gonna start out by having you face the back so that I can show everyone.
I'm gonna be quiet so I can really go deep into this experience.
Excellent. And with this one, we're not going to, for today anyway, I'm not going to bind your arms or your hands. I'm not going to limit your mobility in any way, but I'll still show you how this will be useful in the end. So I'm going to lift your arms up. I'm going to run my first line basically around where your bra ends, like the bottom of your bra. So you don't want it too low because you don't want it around the stomach or the floating ribs. You don't want it too high because you don't want it over someone's pecs or breasts. So I'm going to take my midpoint and pass my free ends through it. And what's a good habit here, even though symmetry looks really pretty, is I don't want it to be right on your spine. So what I'm doing is I'm actually just putting it a little bit to the left right there, because if I have you lie down at any point, I don't want that knot to be right where your vertebrae is. So even though it looks a little off center, it's going to be better that way.
I promise I didn't want to talk, but like you have to sort of know a little bit about anatomy to make it safe, right?
Yeah, you know, and you can get that in a pretty basic instruction, you know, you can get that in a pretty basic class. A good instructor is going to be able to explain things like that. So it's not like you need a pre-med degree or anything like that, but but it is important to have awareness of the body and what we're playing with and what parts are safer to tie on. You know, anything with a lot of muscle or a lot of fat is generally, you know, going to be your safer places. And you want to watch out for places where there's a lot of bones, you know, so you're not compressing things or pressing nerves against the bone, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, but it is possible to learn it from a good instructor. You don't need to understand, you know, you don't have to have like a degree in biology to practice rope bondage.
Perfect.
But it is important to be safe and be conscientious. So I'm going to lift your arms a little bit. I'm going to go back up around. This time I'm going up above the breasts, or if you were a guy, you could say pecs. So there we go. And that's about where I want it, right there. I'm going to turn you back around again. And this time I'm going to pass this rope under this last sort of little loop that I just made here when I went around. So not my original loop that's right here, but rather this one right here. I'm gonna pass my free ends under that one.
Ooh, it's feeling nice.
It's fun, isn't it? It's like a hug. It's like a hug that lasts a long time. And I'm gonna go back up over that same shoulder that I came from. So I'm gonna go up and around, and now I'm going to weave this through here. And what I like to do is I like to go over, under, over, under. So what that means is I'm going over this first rope right here. And then on my way down, I'm going to pass it under, like so. Give a little cinch, because I know you like that. And then I bring it up, which counts as going over again. And then I'm going to bring it under this one. And again, being careful that when I pull this through, the ends don't hit you in the face. And I'm going to turn you back around, So I'm going to go back over this other shoulder to create that nice symmetry. And then the way I'm going to tie this off is I'm going to go under this last rope that I just made here. So it's like the most recent rope that I've just gone. I'm going to bring it all the way down. That's kind of locking it in this way. And then the way I'm going to finish it off is I go all the way down, and then I'm going to go under everything and up through this V. So I'm going to pass, now that I'm down here, I'm going to pass my rope from the bottom up under all of these wraps and come up through the middle of the V, like so. And then for our last step, that same rope that I just passed down, again, it's our most recent rope, I'm just going to run my free ends under that, which is going to create a nice little knot that's going to bring everything together. And there we go. And now the nice thing about this is that it really does have your, yeah, exactly. Go ahead and lean into that because it has your weight nicely and evenly distributed. So I pull on this and it's not going to get any tighter. It's going to have your whole weight supported by these 6 kind of wraps that are going around from the back like that. And notice how I've tied you up, but there's really no restriction on your movement, right? You can still move your arms and your hands. So this is a really safe way of engaging with your partner because you can start out like this. You can even, I know people who go out and they'll wear this under their dress or under their suit on a date to remind them of like, oh, I have rope on me, but going out in public and putting a dress over top of it or whatever, so you have like a kinky secret. And the other thing that's kind of cool about that is that having this harness on you gives me so many attachment points now. If I want to tie, let's say I've done that 2-column on your wrist again. Can you give me your wrist back?
Yeah,
Can we do it again?
Let's do it. We have like 3 minutes.
Perfect.
Yoo-hoo!
So yeah, let me get this other one too.
Oh.
And I'll do this really quickly
I didn't see this coming.
Since we've already taught this one, I'll just do this pretty quickly.
Yeah, like you said, I feel like someone's hugging me.
Yeah, it's a great...
It feels good.
It actually does, it can feel very nurturing,
Yeah, it is.
It feels really, really nice.
So
I'm
like,
going to do this again
even
the way I did
you
it
can practice
before.
with your girlfriends, and then you just take that to the bedroom or...
Yeah, and you can even, like as you see now, you can even practice with your clothes on. It doesn't have to be completely sexual. So now that I have this 2-column done here, I can actually run my free ends under, say, this part of your harness, like this, and then I take them back and I run them through that loop that we made before.
Oh, you didn't
Remember
teach
that?
me this one last time.
Didn't I?
No.
Shame on me. Well,
I
good thing
know.
I'm doing it now.
I'm so happy.
And then watch this.
Oh.
And then you can just, tie that off right
Oh,
there.
that felt awfully hot.
Isn't that nice? So then now this harness that technically isn't restricting any of your movement becomes a place where I can tie other parts of your body. And this can be even really fun. Like let's say I had, a 1-column or a 2-column on your, like just above your knee, like your lower thigh, right above where your knee is. And imagine I tied that to your chest. Here. Imagine the possibilities, right?
Oh,
and I
wow.
just grab you and, I'll let you use your imagination.
Thank you for that. You can leave me like this.
Oh, excellent. In that case,
yeah.
Just sit here
and drink some coffee. And actually,
have my beautiful pet.
I think you had an extra surprise for me.
Did I?
Yeah.
What was I gonna do?
Look, check that out. The whip.
Wait, oh, that's right. I'm so glad you reminded me.
Yes.
So now that I have you all tied up and vulnerable, what do you say?
I don't think I'm ready for that. But thank you so much, Arden.
I know, and what we just demonstrated actually is the wrong way to negotiate, because if I really wanted to bring something new that we hadn't talked about before, I should really do it when you're not tied up.
Oh, that's a good tip.
See, I'm so glad you said no, because next time I'm going to say to you, Karina, can I tie you up and use the whip? And then maybe if I'm lucky, you'll say yes.
We'll see about that. Thank you so much, Arden.
Thank you. It's been
such
a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. It feels really interesting. And since I have no movement and I'm feeling really hot, I think I need some tea to relax. Or I don't know what's going to happen tonight. We'll see.
It's always an adventure.
Thank you. Where can we find you? Your internet and your website?
My book is The New Rules of Attraction. You can find that on Amazon or at most Barnes & Noble. My blog is Arden Leigh, ARDENLEIGH.typepad.com. And I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Arden Sirens.
Perfect. I wanted to give you a hug, but I can't.
I'll
Thanks
give
for
you one.
coming.